They laughed softly, the way people do when they think you can't hear them through the glass. I could. The conference room door wasn't soundproof, just tinted. Perfect for illusions. Inside, my soon-to-be ex-colleagues huddled around a table, my resignation letter projected on the screen like a curiosity. "She's leaving to start her own firm?" One of them snickered, half baffled, half amused. "That's adorable." "Yeah," another added. "Guess not everyone's cut out for corporate life. She'll be freelancing on Fiverr by summer." The laughter was polite, controlled, corporate cruelty disguised as humor. I didn't move, just stood outside the glass wall, calm, invisible, listening to people I'd trained mock the very skill that built their promotions. It didn't sting. It documented. Every smirk, every whisper, every underestimated syllable. I filed it away quietly, as evidence. Ryan, the department head, leaned back in his chair, sipping his coffee like a man allergic to humility. "Ambition's good," he said, "but some people confuse rebellion with leadership." They all nodded. They always did. No one disagreed with Ryan. Not because he was right, but because he was loud. I exhaled slowly and pushed the door open. Conversation snapped back to professionalism. I smiled like nothing was wrong because, technically, nothing was. I'd already signed the separation agreement that morning. This meeting was just theater. "Ah, our future entrepreneur," Ryan said with that condescending grin that belonged on motivational posters about bad management. "Tell us, what's the plan? A lifestyle blog? Consulting?" "Something like that," I said evenly. "Smaller team, more efficient, less talk." A few chuckles. One person muttered, "Good luck." "Thanks," I said, still smiling. "I'll send you a press release when we make headlines." He laughed, genuine this time, a little too loudly. "Sure, Elena. Let us know when you hit your first $1,000,000. "I will," I said, meeting his eyes. "Maybe you'll be working for me by then." The room went still. Then more laughter, this time nervous. They thought it was a joke. I didn't. When I left the building that day, the winter air felt sharper than usual. Cold. Precise. The kind of weather that demands clarity. My phone buzzed with messages of fake encouragement. "So proud of you for taking the leap. You're so brave to start over." They didn't mean it. They were mourning what my exit implied, that comfort was just cowardice with benefits. My new office wasn't much. A 2-room space above a cafe with exposed brick and windows that rattled in the wind. No glass walls, no catered lunches, no HR handbooks laminated in corporate optimism. Just silence, coffee, and code. I opened my laptop, the one I'd bought with my first bonus years ago, and scrolled through the seed funding emails. Investors had called my idea disruptive, which was code for dangerous to the established order. I liked that. The platform wasn't glamorous. It was analytical. A system that could automate financial pattern detection in real time. The same process I'd perfected manually for years, while my old firm charged clients 10 times what it was worth. In a week, I had a working prototype. In 2, a name. NovaQuant. By the end of the month, a venture group offered me initial capital, conditional on one thing. "You'll need an industry name," they said. "Someone recognizable to anchor trust. A legacy executive." I nodded. I already knew who. As I walked home that night, city lights flickering against the wet pavement, I thought about Ryan's smirk, the synchronized laughter, the phrase that echoed like an anthem of arrogance. "She's not built for this." They were right. I wasn't built for their version of this. the polished cage where brilliance gets diluted by hierarchy. I wasn't leaving to start over. I was leaving to build something that would quietly consume what they called stability. In their minds, I'd exited the game. In mine, I'd changed the rules. The first investor contract came through at 11:42 p.m. I signed it under a single desk lamp. No celebration, no champagne. Just a quiet promise to myself, written in digital ink. They thought I was gone. But I was only getting ready to hire. My farewell email was 3 sentences long, polite, specific, bloodless. I pressed send at 6:41 a.m., when inboxes are quiet and courage is a private thing. By 8, screenshots of it were traveling through Slack with commentary that smelled like cologne and insecurity. Bold move, someone wrote. Translation, burned out, another replied. A third added a knife disguised as a hug. She'll be back after Q3. I didn't answer the pings that followed. Coffee invites, pick your brain requests, and one message from HR reminding me to return the laptop in pristine condition, as if my exit interview were a crime scene. I left the badge on my desk like a pressed leaf and walked out through the revolving door. The building exhaled me the way a body rejects a splinter, reflexively, relieved. My office was a short staircase above a cafe that roasted beans like a vow. 2 rooms, a wobbly radiator, and a window that gave up on insulation in 2008. The landlord promised to fix the flickering light. I promised myself not to care. I took the second chair from the hallway and christened it Board Seat A. NovaQuant wasn't an idea. It was muscle memory with an API. Years of staring at lumpy spreadsheets and vendor-provided dashboards that lied by omission had taught me 3 constants. Data arrives messy. Risk hides in the glue between systems. And executives want an answer they can read on a slide. So I built the thing I'd never been given, a clean pipeline that ingested transactions, normalized categories, mapped them against covenant thresholds, and spat out early warnings before the smoke alarms learned to scream. Vendor deltas, margin compression, revenue recognition drift. I gave each a quiet color and a plain sentence. A machine that spoke like an auditor and listened like a therapist. The first week was requirements, the second was prototypes, the third was ruthlessly deleting anything decorative. I ran the model on public filings for 3 mid-cap clients I used to support. The graph lines did that honest thing they do when truth isn't being managed. The patterns I used to circle with a pen appeared in the same places, just sooner. I slept 4 hours and dreamt in JSON. By the end of the month, I had a demo and a deck. The deck didn't contain a single stock photo of a handshake. It had 3 slides: problem, approach, unit economics. My revenue model was a subscription with usage-based bands. The LTV math wasn't a prayer, it was a spreadsheet. I didn't put hockey stick anywhere. I put detectable fraud lag, reduced by 19.6% in synthetic tests. The first investor meeting happened because a friend of a friend forwarded my email to a fund that doesn't take cold intros, but occasionally adopts strays with clean tables. Their office smelled like reclaimed wood and cap tables. I wore the same suit I used to wear when presenting budgets no one read. "What are you really selling?" the partner asked. "Sleep," I said, "and the receipts for it." He didn't smile, but he stopped tapping his pen. 2 weeks later, he sent a term sheet. A safe at a cap I could live with, no participating preferred, pro rata rights, standard MFN. The money would give me 18 months of runway if I hired only when necessary and treated marketing like a scalpel. He asked what would kill me in 12. "Security theater," I said. "So we'll do real security. SOC 2 in motion, not in marketing." We closed in a conference room where the air conditioner sounded like a distant train. No champagne, just wiring instructions, a friendly handshake, and a question from the associate who'd been quiet until then. "Who's your adult in the room?" I blinked. "I am?" He winced, apologetic. "I mean, your experienced operator. Someone legacy clients recognize. Credibility is currency in this vertical." He wasn't wrong. The product worked, the numbers made sense, but the market would ask for a familiar name to pin their fear on. I added a line to the post-close checklist. "Hire senior operator, public company pedigree." Titles are costumes. I needed a mask that reassured banks. Back at the office, the cafe's grinder throbbed through the floor as I mapped my first quarter like a military operation. Incorporation documents, filed. IP assignment, signed and notarized. Insurance, D&O and cyber, binders on the way. Vendor stack, minimal and mean. Postgres over frills. A queue that wouldn't embarrass me in an audit. Logging like a diary that expects a subpoena. I wrote an incident response plan and hoped never to read it again. The gossip from my old company kept trickling in through people who think betrayal is networking. "Heard you're doing dashboards," one message read, like a pat on the head. I wrote back, "I'm doing decisions," then muted the thread. I made a hiring spreadsheet with 3 columns: must-have, nice-to-have, ego tax. Under must-have, a CTO who could smell a race condition over the phone, and a product counsel who flinched at adjectives. Under ego tax, anyone who asked for chief in the title before asking about uptime. In the evenings, when the radiator sighed like an old witness, I ran quiet biz dev. I emailed operators I respected with a single sentence and a link to book 15 minutes. No breathless claims, just, if you've ever found a risk at month 5 you need it at month 2, this might be useful. The calendar filled. Then came the invitation I didn't expect. A corporate gala, the kind with soft uplights and name tags that try too hard. I'd been added to the guest list by a VC who liked the way I refused to pitch during the pitch. I almost declined. Then I remembered something my grandmother used to say while balancing a checkbook at a wobbly kitchen table. "You don't need to be loud to be counted. You just need the ledger." I went. The room hummed with practiced laughter and shoes that had opinions about marble. My former team was there, radiating the relief of people who had decided my risk wasn't theirs. They spoke in acronyms and victories. No one asked me what I was building with the kind of curiosity that costs pride. But across the room, near the bar where the ice melted like patience, stood a man I knew well by reputation, and by the emails he never answered after 6 p.m., the CFO they worshipped and feared in equal measure. His tie was straight. His eyes were tired in a way balance sheets recognize. When someone said the word transformation, he didn't nod. He blinked like a man allergic to marketing. Credibility is currency. So is exhaustion. The next morning, I reviewed the investor's note again, scribbled in the margin of the term sheet, "Find your legacy operator." I poured coffee, opened a blank outreach doc, and typed a name. Not a recruiter list, not a spray and pray. One name. I didn't know if he'd take the call. I only knew this. Mockery is a loud instrument. Integrity is a tuning fork. When you strike it, the people who still hear know what they're listening for. I saved the draft, closed the laptop softly, and watched the cafe's steam curl against the window like a signature I hadn't written yet. I knew exactly where to look. The invitation arrived printed on cardstock thick enough to feel like a test. The Global Finance Leadership Gala, celebrating innovation and excellence in financial strategy. It was the kind of event where success was measured by who pretended to recognize whom. I almost threw it out, but the timing was poetic. NovaQuant had just closed its second round. The ink was barely dry on the funding agreement. The world still thought I was a freelancer. The hotel ballroom glittered with gold light and recycled arrogance. Champagne in tall flutes, small talk in practiced tones. Every name tag shimmered under the chandeliers like a badge of self-importance. I wasn't dressed to compete. A black minimalist dress, quiet jewelry, and confidence that didn't need sequins. I hadn't been in a room like this since the day I left Trident Finance. But the scent was the same. Ambition and expensive insecurity. They found me by the bar, of course. They always do. The ones who used to measure my worth in overtime hours and compliance reports. "Elena?" One voice came, sharp with surprise. I didn't know they were inviting consultants. I turned. There they were, Ryan and his entourage of middle managers. The same ones who'd laughed behind the glass wall when I quit. He looked older now, though he'd never admit it. His tie was looser, his charm thinner. "Not a consultant," I said smoothly, stirring my drink. "I'm with Novaquant." The name landed softly. None of them recognized it. "Oh, right," he said. "That startup thing. How's that going?" I smiled. "We're building something sustainable." He grinned. "Sustainable? That's adorable. You're still in the bootstrap phase, right? I remember that energy. I used to have it before I learned how the real market works." There it was, that brand of superiority that feeds on projection. His friends laughed politely, all of them pretending not to watch for the moment I flinched. But I didn't. "Congratulations on surviving the board reviews," I said evenly. "I heard Trident's new compliance audit was eventful." The smile faltered just slightly, like a stock price before a crash. "You've been keeping tabs?" "I read everything," I said. "It's a habit that built Novaquant." He chuckled again, too loudly. "Well, good luck with your, little venture. We're doing big things now." New CFO coming in, restructuring the analytics division. You probably remember him, Richard Halden? I did. The name clicked into place like a key in a lock. Their new CFO, the one they were bragging about, was the same man who'd mentored me years ago, who'd once said, "You have the mind of a strategist and the patience of an architect. Don't let titles shrink you." "Of course," I said, letting the corners of my mouth lift slightly. "He's credible." Ryan nodded proudly. "He's the best we've ever had. Finally, someone who gets big-picture thinking." "Yes," I said softly. He always did. That night, while they toasted to their illusion of progress, I watched Richard from across the ballroom. He looked different, thinner around the eyes, a little bored, the way people get when their brilliance is boxed inside bureaucracy. When he saw me, recognition sparked. "Elena Rivera," he said when we finally met by the dessert table. "Haven't seen you since the Deloitte merger. You look free." "I am," I said. "You look like you're thinking about freedom." He laughed, a tired sound that didn't reach his eyes. "If I could get out from under the layers of politics, maybe. But Trident's, well, Trident." "You could do more," I said. He tilted his head. "You offering me a job?" "Not yet," I said. "But I might be building something worth leaving for." His expression shifted from polite amusement to interest. "Tell me more." We talked for 15 minutes. Quietly, intentionally. I told him about Novaquant, the data automation, the compliance intelligence layer. No sales pitch, just structure. He asked smart questions about capital runway, infrastructure, scaling strategy. His tone wasn't dismissive, it was alive. When we finished, he nodded. "Send me your deck. Not for funding, for curiosity." As I left, I passed Ryan again. He was laughing too loudly, the kind of laugh that hides fear. He didn't see the look Richard gave me across the room. The faint, calculating nod of someone remembering that competence doesn't die when you leave the room. Back in the car, the city lights blurred through the windshield, and I realized something simple but sharp. Their mockery had never been about me. It had been about permission. My decision to walk away reminded them they never did. The next morning, I sent Richard the deck. Subject line, "Something worth leaving for." He replied 7 minutes later, "You're building what we should have built years ago. Let's talk." I closed the email, leaned back, and smiled to myself. They thought my exit was the end of the story. It was only the setup for the plot twist, where their idol became my employee. The morning sunlight slid through the blinds in narrow, deliberate lines, like decisions waiting to be made. I was already at my desk when Richard's name appeared in my inbox. Subject, "Let's meet." No formalities, just truth. I read it twice, then once more. We met 3 days later, not in a boardroom, but in a quiet cafe halfway between his downtown tower and my second-floor office. He arrived 15 minutes early, a habit of people who've spent too long in systems that punish lateness more than failure. His tie was off, his posture relaxed, but there was a kind of gravity around him. The look of someone used to being the smartest person in a meeting and tired of having to hide it. "Elena," he greeted, shaking my hand with that measured confidence only decades in finance can teach. "I looked through your deck. You weren't exaggerating." "I don't exaggerate," I said, stirring my coffee. "I document." He smiled. "I remember that about you." We talked numbers first, always the safest place to begin. I walked him through NovaQuant's model, subscription-based analytics, predictive risk engines, and real-time compliance reporting. He asked precise questions about regulatory compatibility and data lineage. I answered with equal precision. No fluff, no grand visions, just structure. By the second cup of coffee, the conversation had shifted. "You're running lean," he said. "No senior management?" "Intentionally," I replied. "Flat, agile, and allergic to bureaucracy. We build, we ship, we iterate." He nodded slowly, tracing the rim of his cup. "You know, they laugh about you sometimes. At Trident." I didn't flinch. "Do they?" He leaned back, studying me. "They call you the one who couldn't handle corporate politics. The data girl who got lucky with a few investors. They still think you'll come crawling back." I smiled faintly. "Then let's make sure they're watching when I don't." He exhaled, a short, sharp breath that sounded like a man remembering his own cage. "I'm not sure how much longer I can stand it. The committees, the reports no one reads, the endless layers between logic and action. It's like watching talent die in slow motion." I let the silence stretch before answering, then stopped watching. He blinked, surprised by the simplicity of it. "You're offering me something." I nodded. "Yes. A chance to build something unpolluted." Richard looked at me like he was trying to gauge if I understood what I was asking. "You want me to leave a global corporation to join a startup with 20 employees and no safety net? I want you to join a company where your decisions actually matter," I said. "Where you won't need 5 signatures to fix one problem." He chuckled softly. "You always did have a talent for making rebellion sound rational." "It's not rebellion," I said. "It's evolution, and you know it." He looked down at his coffee, then back up. "What would the role be?" "Chief Operating Officer. Equity-based compensation. 20% vesting over 3 years. You'd own part of the machine, not just oil it." He didn't speak for a moment. The weight of the offer hung between us, quiet, heavy, inevitable. Finally, he said, "You realize what happens if I accept."
"The people who mocked you? They'll come after both of us."
"I'm counting on it," I said. That earned me the smallest, most genuine smile I'd seen from him all day. "You're dangerous," he said.
only to people who mistake arrogance for strategy. We finalized the terms over a second meeting. No lawyers, no PR team, just clean language and mutual respect. By the end of the week, the paperwork was done. He handed in his resignation to Trident's board the following Monday. By Tuesday morning, the industry was buzzing. Anonymous tips, rumors, LinkedIn speculation. The same voices that had mocked me were suddenly whispering my name again, but this time with curiosity and a little fear. At 10:12 a.m., my phone lit up with a text from Ryan. "Is it true? You hired him?" I didn't reply. At noon, Novaquant's PR team published the press release. Trident Finance CFO joins Novaquant as Chief Operating Officer. The headline spread like wildfire. By evening, my inbox was chaos. Congratulations from investors, cautious notes from analysts, and a dozen job applications from people who'd once laughed behind the glass wall. But it was one email that stood out. Short, sharp, and petty. From Ryan. Subject: clever move, but let's see how long he lasts under you. I closed the laptop and smiled. He still thought this was personal. It wasn't. It was architectural. Every decision I made was a brick in a structure that would one day dwarf his entire department. That night, Richard called. "You know," he said, his voice calm but charged, "I don't think they've realized what just happened." "They will," I said. "Give it a week." He laughed softly. "You really did it, didn't you?" "Not yet," I said, "but I'm about to." Because the trap wasn't in hiring him. It was in what came next, when the company that mocked me realized their hierarchy now reported to mine. The morning the announcement went live, the city seemed unnaturally still. I woke before dawn, not out of nerves but instinct, the kind of alertness that comes when you know something irreversible is about to happen. At exactly 8 a.m., our press wire hit every major business feed. Novaquant appoints former Trident Finance CFO as Chief Operating Officer. Expansion strategy in motion. No exclamation points, no inflated adjectives, just precision and inevitability. By 8:03, my inbox began pulsing with reactions. Investors forwarding congratulations, journalists requesting interviews, old contacts trying to reintroduce themselves as longtime supporters. But I was waiting for one specific reaction: the silence from Trident. By 8:10, that silence cracked. Ryan's name appeared on my phone, vibrating across the desk like a warning bell. I let it ring until it stopped. Seconds later, a text arrived. "You can't be serious." I didn't answer. I was. Across the river, in Trident's headquarters, a building of glass arrogance, I could imagine the scene unfolding. The morning briefing derailed, managers huddling around screens, HR scrambling to draft a no comment statement. I could almost hear the hum of panic bleeding through polished corridors. By 8:30, social media had taken over the story. LinkedIn's algorithm turned it into an echo chamber of admiration and speculation. Incredible move by Novaquant. A bold strategic play. Did Trident just lose its spine? Every post was another needle in their pride. By 9 o'clock, Richard walked into my office. No ceremony, no entourage, just a calm presence in a navy suit and rolled-up sleeves. He placed a folded copy of the Financial Tribune on my desk. Our names filled the top half of the front page. "They're calling you fearless," he said, amused. I smiled. "They'll call us dangerous next." He sat down, scanning the room that had become our command center. "You understand this changes everything, right?" "Yes," I said. "It was meant to." He nodded. "Trident's already called me twice. The CEO wants to meet, to discuss transitions." "They won't talk transitions," I said. "They'll talk containment. You were their credibility. Now you're ours." He exhaled, almost laughing. "And you're not even celebrating?" "I don't celebrate leverage," I said. "I use it." By noon, the wave had crested. Industry analysts began publishing their takes. One headline stood out: "Novaquant's strategic coup, the startup that stole Trident's compass." The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 years ago, they mocked my resignation email in that same building. Now their leadership pipeline was bleeding into my payroll. I didn't have time for satisfaction, though. The transition team was onboarding Richard, setting up communication channels, and preparing our new investor brief. My only indulgence was watching the metrics dashboard spike: mentions, engagement, inbound partnership requests. By 1:15, my assistant forwarded me an internal memo accidentally leaked from Trident's HR system. The subject line read, "Urgent, response plan, executive departure and competitive risk." The first line made me stop. "We underestimated Rivera's operational depth." For the first time all day, I laughed. Not cruelly, just quietly. It's strange how recognition only arrives once you no longer need it. That afternoon, Richard and I held our first leadership meeting. The room smelled faintly of fresh paint and new ambition. "We need to be ready," he said. "They'll try to counterattack, retain clients, spread rumors, maybe even audit your tech." "Let them," I said. "The difference between confidence and chaos is documentation." He studied me for a moment. "You really planned this, didn't you?" "Not this," I said. "Just the part where truth compounds faster than ego." By evening, my phone was a battlefield of notifications. The one that stood out wasn't congratulatory. It was a message from an analyst who'd once declined to take my calls. "Would love to feature Novaquant in our upcoming innovation report. Your model's redefining compliance intelligence." Redefining. The word tasted better than victory. As the sun fell over the skyline, I looked out the window of our modest office. Still just a second-floor space above a cafe, but now pulsing with quiet power. Through the glass, I could see the silhouette of Trident's skyscraper glowing across the river, their names still lit in white. It looked fragile now, almost decorative. Richard leaned against the doorway. "They're furious," he said. "I got a message from Ryan. He told me I'd regret it." I smiled faintly. "He's right." Richard frowned. "You think you'll regret this?" "No," I said. "He will." That night, when the last employee left and the city went still again, I sat alone in the dark, rereading the press release. Every word was deliberate. Every silence between words was earned. I thought about the way they laughed behind that glass wall. Dismissive, certain, small. Then I whispered, not to anyone but the memory of that room. "You taught me the language of power. You just never expected me to speak it fluently." Outside, the river lights shimmered against Trident's windows, reflections bending, refracting, slowly fading into my skyline. By the next week, the city's rhythm had shifted, faintly, but enough for those who paid attention. In the lobby of Trident Finance, whispers carried faster than elevator chimes. Half of LinkedIn was still processing the headline. The other half was quietly updating resumes. Richard's departure had detonated more than a power vacuum. It had cracked their illusion of permanence. The man they once called untouchable had joined the woman they once called unqualified. The hierarchy no longer made sense. By Monday morning, the first resignation hit the wires. One of Trident's senior data analysts, a quiet prodigy I'd mentored years ago, accepted an offer from Novaquant. By Wednesday, 2 more followed. By Friday, HR had declared internal instability and launched an emergency retention incentive program. It didn't work. The emails trickled into my inbox like small victories disguised as logistics. Elena, thank you for the opportunity. I never thought I'd leave, but your company feels like what work should be. Heard you're hiring compliance engineers, would love to contribute. I used to sit in the corner of those meetings where they laughed about you. I'm not laughing anymore. I didn't recruit anyone directly. I didn't have to. Word travels differently when people realize freedom is an option. At NovaQuant, things moved with quiet precision. Richard had slipped into leadership as if the position had always been waiting for him. He handled operations with the calm efficiency of a man allergic to drama. Every decision was grounded, documented, strategic. He was, in short, the adult in the room, the one investors trusted, the one who made the market look again. Do you ever think about what they're saying right now? He asked one evening as we reviewed financial models. Constantly, I said, but not in the way you think. I want them to talk. Every rumor adds momentum. He smiled. You're weaponizing perception. No, I said, I'm letting it do its natural job. Because perception, I'd learned, doesn't destroy truth. It advertises it. That same week, a journalist from Finance Today requested an interview. She wanted to discuss NovaQuant's leadership strategy in the context of modern corporate disruption. Translation, she wanted a quote that confirmed I'd outsmarted the empire that dismissed me. We met in a small glass room at our office. The city glowed behind her recorder. Be honest, she said. Was hiring Trident's CFO revenge? I smiled. No. Revenge implies emotion. This was architecture. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. You don't sound angry. I'm not, I said. Anger is reactive. I planned this 2 years ago, the day they decided to mistake ambition for arrogance. She looked impressed, maybe unsettled. And how does it feel, watching people who once ignored you now quote you? I considered it for a moment. Like justice wrote its own press release. The interview went viral within hours, not because of scandal, but because of tone, calm, factual, measured. The market loves composure. It reads as inevitability. By the following week, Trident's stock dropped 6%. Their clients began calling, curious about the technology their former CFO had joined. A few even asked if NovaQuant would take over their analytics contracts. Richard brought the reports to my desk. They're hemorrhaging accounts, he said, handing me the file. I skimmed through the numbers, unbothered. Then they should have valued accuracy over arrogance. He exhaled, then chuckled softly. You're colder than I remember. Colder? I said. No. Clearer. Inside the exodus, smaller details unfolded. Former teammates who'd once smirked during my exit interview were now sending polite feelers through mutual contacts. I wasn't cruel. I evaluated each one on merit. Out of 12 applications, I approved 1. A junior analyst who used to sit silently through meetings while others stole her ideas. When she arrived on her first day, she lingered in my doorway, nervous. Why me? She asked. Because you listened, I said, and because you deserve to work somewhere that doesn't confuse volume with value. Her eyes shone, the kind of gratitude that reminds you why integrity matters in the first place. By late autumn, NovaQuant had tripled its headcount. We'd signed 2 enterprise clients, secured a global partnership with a data infrastructure firm, and finalized our Series C negotiations. Investors described our trajectory as methodical dominance.
Trident, meanwhile, was bleeding leadership.
Internal memos leaked, desperate retention strategies, board-level inquiries, even whispers of a hostile merger to save face. Ryan was still there, holding his title like a life raft, but from what I heard, he'd been stripped of his authority, reduced to project approvals and motivational emails no one read. Sometimes poetic justice doesn't roar. It just updates your org chart. One evening, as Richard and I reviewed our expansion roadmap, he looked up from his notes. "Do you ever miss it?" he asked. "The old structure, the politics, the power games?" "Never," I said. "You can't miss what you outgrew." He smiled quietly. "They really underestimated you." "No," I corrected. "They defined me. They just didn't like the definition." When he left for the night, I stayed back, staring out at the skyline. Trident's building still glowed across the river, but one letter of their logo had burned out. The T flickered intermittently, as if struggling to stay relevant. I sipped my coffee, half amused. It was symbolic, really. Arrogance dimming itself. Because by now, it wasn't just a deal or a headline. It was a slow unraveling of everything they believed immutable. The company that once mocked my departure had become a cautionary tale, and I hadn't lifted a single sword. I'd just written better contracts. It happened exactly the way I'd imagined, quietly, inevitably, and in a room made of glass. The email came from Trident's procurement department, with the subject line, "Request for partnership renewal. Urgent review required." For a moment, I thought it was satire, but it wasn't. Their largest client, one of the accounts Richard had personally managed, had transferred its analytics contract to NovaQuant after our Series C announcement. Trident's board had no choice but to explore collaboration with us to remain in the vendor chain. Translation? They were forced to knock on our door to survive. I scheduled the meeting for Thursday at 10 a.m. and chose the smallest conference room in our office. Transparent walls, modest furniture, and no branding except a single framed quote. "Precision is the quietest form of power." Richard walked in first that morning. Crisp suit, calm energy. "You sure about this?" he asked, adjusting his cufflinks. "I'm sure," I said. "Let them see what integrity looks like when it scales." At exactly 10, the door slid open. Ryan entered first, still wearing the same arrogance, though it had aged like milk. Two other executives trailed behind, legal counsel and a junior procurement manager who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Elena," Ryan said, forcing a smile. "You look different." "I am," I said evenly. "Please, have a seat." He sat, glancing around the room, taking in the quiet minimalism. "Congratulations on the growth," he said, voice dripping with forced civility. "NovaQuant's made quite a splash." I smiled faintly. "I hear Trident's been busy too. A lot of restructuring." His jaw tightened. "You know how cycles go. We adapt." "Of course," I said. "Adaptation favors the prepared." Richard entered moments later. Ryan froze when he saw him. "Richard," he said, the word strained. "Good to see you." Richard's expression was polite, detached. "Likewise." The tension was surgical, sterile, professional, but charged with unspoken history. Ryan tried to steer the conversation back to business, flipping open his folder like a shield. "So," he began, "we're here to explore synergy opportunities. Our client transition plan requires NovaQuant's technology for compliance continuity. I think this partnership could be mutually beneficial." "Mutually beneficial," I repeated softly. Interesting phrase. Richard leaned forward. Before we discuss synergy, I'd like to clarify. Are you referring to the same compliance continuity you once said was unnecessary? Ryan hesitated. Business landscapes evolve. Indeed they do, I said. That's why we built what you couldn't. He tried to laugh it off, but his hands betrayed him. Tight grip, nervous tap of his pen. Let's focus on the future, he said. No need to rehash the past. On the contrary, I said, meeting his eyes. The past is why you're sitting here. For a moment, no one breathed. The junior manager's pen stopped mid-note. Richard remained silent, watching, letting the weight of the words settle. Ryan cleared his throat. Elena, we all start somewhere. No hard feelings, right? Let's just put together a service agreement that works for both parties. I opened the folder in front of me. Inside was a draft contract, simple, elegant, ironclad. This agreement, I said, sliding it across the table, outlines the licensing terms under which NovaQuant's analytics platform can be integrated with Trident systems. You'll find the fees are proportionate to the cost of condescension. He frowned, scanning the figures. These rates are standard for legacy institutions seeking third-party compliance restoration, I said. We have to account for additional risk mitigation. He glanced up. You're penalizing us. I'm pricing accuracy, I replied. Something you undervalued for years. Richard suppressed a smile. Ryan sat back, studying me, realization dawning in slow motion. You planned this, didn't you? I tilted my head. No, Ryan. I prepared for it. The silence that followed was immaculate. No argument, no denial, just the heavy hum of consequence filling the space. After a long moment, he sighed and pushed the contract toward his counsel. We'll review it. Take your time, I said. NovaQuant isn't in a hurry. We already own the infrastructure your clients depend on. He stood, forcing another brittle smile. You've done well for yourself, Elena. I smiled back, calm as glass. No, I did right by myself. They left without shaking hands. The junior manager gave me a small, almost reverent nod before following them out. Richard stayed behind, watching their reflections disappear down the hallway. You could have humiliated him, he said. You didn't. Humiliation is temporary, I said. Clarity lasts. He nodded, a slow smile spreading. They won't survive the quarter, you know. I know, I said. But survival was never their strength. Pretending was. Later that afternoon, our legal team confirmed the inevitable. Trident had accepted our terms. The company that once dismissed me had just signed a dependency contract under my leadership. When the signed copy arrived, I printed the first page and pinned it beside my desk. Not as a trophy, but as evidence. Proof that patience and precision do what pride never can. That evening, Richard walked me to the elevator. Does it feel like victory? He asked. I looked at the skyline beyond the glass, where Trident's building shimmered faintly in the distance. No, I said. It feels like justice. Measured, lawful, and irrevocable. Because the truest reckoning doesn't scream, it signs. 2 months later, the contract with Trident was quietly renewed, fully executed, and publicly unremarkable. No headlines this time, no drama, just a press release so sterile it barely registered on industry feeds. Trident Finance partners with NovaQuant for data integrity solutions. But beneath that line of corporate anesthesia was something no journalist wrote. Trident now depended on the company they once dismissed. On me. Their entire compliance infrastructure, the one Ryan once mocked as Elena's obsession with details, now lived behind our paywall, managed by our algorithms, authenticated by our systems. Every transaction they processed sent a small, silent royalty into my company's account. The irony was cleaner than satisfaction. It was structure. Richard and I didn't celebrate. We didn't need to. The victory wasn't in headlines or metrics. It was in the shift of power that no one could undo. Trident had to renew every quarter, under terms we dictated. Their signature was their surrender, repeated in print 4 times a year. Some nights I'd walk past their headquarters, still tall, still glass, but dimmer now. The reflection in the river looked fractured, like the illusion of permanence finally breaking under truth's weight. I could almost see the conference room where they once laughed behind that wall. Different faces now. Same fear. Inside NovaQuant, the air felt different. Steady. Mature. We'd become the thing they said I couldn't build. Profitable, disciplined, respected. We had 3 offices, a waiting list of clients, and a reputation built not on noise, but on documentation. My team didn't chase hype. They chased precision. And in every onboarding meeting, I'd tell them the same thing. We don't compete with companies. We outlast them. Richard was in the main conference room when I walked in that morning, reviewing next quarter's projections. He'd traded his old CFO stiffness for something lighter, sharper. "Do you ever think they'll call?" he asked without looking up. "Trident?" He nodded. "They already did," I said. "Last week. Wanted a discount on the renewal." He looked up, half amused. "And?" "I told them our pricing reflects our values," I said. "Integrity costs what it costs." He laughed, quiet, genuine. "You know, I used to think control meant authority, but you've built something different here. It's not control, it's credibility." I smiled. Authority fades. Credibility compounds. He nodded thoughtfully. "You've changed the tone of this industry." "No," I said. "I just refused to imitate its noise." Later that afternoon, I found myself alone in my office. Sunlight stretched across the desk, catching on a small framed photo of the early team. 6 of us crammed around mismatched desks, eyes tired but alive. I thought of the woman I was then. Underestimated, dismissed, walking out of a building full of people who measured worth in titles and echo. Now my company's signature sat on contracts that governed them all. There was no rush of triumph, no cinematic moment of revenge, just a quiet exhale of balance restored. The laughter that once mocked my choices had turned into budgets that funded my vision. I didn't need applause. I'd built permanence. That evening, Richard and I attended an industry roundtable, the same annual event where I'd once been a guest, invisible at the back of the room. This time, my name was printed on the banner. Elena Rivera, founder and CEO, NovaQuant. As we entered, I noticed the crowd's subtle shift. Conversations paused. Eyes tracked me, not with ridicule, but respect. Ryan wasn't there. He'd moved on, according to whispers. The new Trident delegation sat at the opposite table, heads bent over notes, visibly cautious. Their lead procurement officer stood to shake my hand before the session began. "Ms. Rivera," she said nervously, "it's an honor to finally meet you." I smiled politely. "We've met before," I said. "You just didn't remember the version of me that didn't matter yet." She blinked, unsure how to respond. I spared her the discomfort with a small nod. "Let's start fresh." During the session, a moderator asked about the future of corporate resilience. Most gave predictable answers about innovation and agility. When it came to me, I said simply, "Resilience isn't about recovery. It's about remembering who you are before they convince you to forget." The room went silent. Pens stopped moving. Even the moderator hesitated before thanking me. Richard smirked from across the table. After the event, I slipped out before the applause, preferring the quiet over spectacle. Outside, the night air smelled of rain and steel, the same scent it had on the day I walked away from Trident with nothing but resolve. The city hummed below, its windows flickering like tiny admissions of truth. I paused at the corner, looking up at the skyline, my skyline now, and thought of every woman still sitting behind a glass wall somewhere, swallowing brilliance because someone mistook her silence for weakness. To her, I'd say this: don't shout. Prepare. Build something they can't dismantle. Let time turn your restraint into their dependency. I stepped into the waiting car, watching the lights blur into silver streaks across the window. They mocked my career choices once. Now they renew their contracts under them. And the best part? I never needed revenge. Only results.